Welcome back to CBTV. I'm Mike Braham. Earlier in the show, we talked about technology in the coming year, the new tools. Now let's talk about the new rules and what we can learn from the military about professional development and leadership. I'm joined now by Captain Chuck Hollingsworth. He's the commanding officer of the Navy Center for Personal and Professional Development. Thank you for being here, Captain.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
At the seminar, we really touched on a lot of different things, but one of the things that you really mentioned that caught my attention, because we really want to focus on leadership, is that you felt that in today's environment, there's a trust deficit. Could you kind of expound upon that a little bit and how you see it applying both in the military, but maybe also in the civilian world?
Sure. The research is clear, both in the military and the civilian sector, that, and it's been multiple decades that's happening, that overall across society, trust in the workplace has been declining. And so, in the reasons for that are many and complex, but if we can just accept the fact that that's a fact,
right.
And now as leaders say, what are we going to do with that, and how are we going to manage it? So, and if you think about the things that we want in the workplace, things like cooperation, collaboration, creativity,
right.
All of those aspects are actually enabled by trust.
Right.
And so we really need to be thinking about trust as a commodity in the workplace, and how to develop it and how to manage it.
Okay. And from that trust, a lot of times I know that we've talked about it's the shadow of the leader. So what's the message oftentimes is you would see that we need to adapt as leaders when we say to somebody, this is really important,
right.
But then we ourselves maybe walk out of the room. How do we as leaders maybe change our perspective and then also be sure that we're asking there to build that trust between even the lowest levels and the highest levels of the organization?
You allude to this whole, the leadership by example thing. And sometimes I think as leaders, we assume too much sometimes. And we need to be careful that when we say, this is our strategy, this is our priorities of this workplace, that then our walk needs to match that talk.
Right.
And it's those little things that you do that actually enforce or break down this issue of trust.
Okay. And from an assessment perspective, as I'm looking at 2012 staring me in the eye as a business leader, what might be those ways that I could take a quick assessment or a quick understanding of what I have to change personally, professionally, both at the executive level, but at the troop level? And I think you called it like the 3 C's.
Right. At the seminar, we talked about what I call command climate assessment, cultural workshops, and then a communication spot check. And really all of those are just based on the principle that if you're trying to go someplace strategically, of course you need to know what your starting point is. And a lot of times it's almost human nature for us to assume that we're all a little better than perhaps we are. And sometimes we apply that to our workplace. We need to be careful about that. So an honest assessment, it's almost an inquiry as to really how we're doing. And so you can do that through a cultural workshop. You can do it through a web-based survey of some sort. The military actually requires that all of our commands do a command climate survey annually. Of course, we have a lot of turnover in leadership, and we want our leaders to have a sense of where their command is culturally so that you can move forward.
Are you guys using any technology, whether it's social media or SurveyMonkey type of things, to get to that information in a truthful way?
We do, of course. Technology, looking at the earlier segment, technology for the military, that's one of our asymmetric advantages as a nation. And we certainly embrace that. And even in this area of human capital, we embrace mobile technology. We are finding ways to, for instance, one of the things my command developed was a new fitness regime. And we actually have that now where it's available, downloadable to an iPhone, because we know the young population of the military, that's how they like to receive it, and they're actually taking that iPhone to the gym. So certainly that's a part of the modus in which to work. What I have to remind people, and I'm almost the conscience for the Navy for this, is to not get so caught up in the technology, the mission, the fights over budget, to forget that behind every tweet and behind every social media page is a person.
Right.
And that person has psychology and emotion going on. And as a leader, we owe it to the organization and to our mission to spend a little bit of time understanding those dynamics.
Okay. And as you know, when you make it to a Navy captain or an admiral, or whether you make it into the VP ranks or even higher, part of the C-suite, there's the thought and the reality that we get isolated from the truth.
Yes.
What are some of the ways that maybe you all have benchmarked to really be able to truly understand that, you know, the front line in such a way that you're not as insulated as people may think?
Right. That's so important to that honest assessment, right? Knowing where you are. And the last thing you want to be is in that ivory tower where you don't get ground truth. And the military does a couple of things. You know, every command has that senior enlisted member, what we call a command master chief, and he is really the commanding officer's trusted advisor to get out there on the deck plate, so to speak, and have that pulse. You know, you get to the coffee pot, you get to the smoke break room, wherever it is, and find out what's going on. And of course, I know in the civilian sector, there's you know, there may not be that exact equivalency, but it's something to think about. Having that individual that can be out there to get you that pulse, so you do in fact have an honest assessment.
You know, one of the things, you know, as you and I got taught in flight school about this situational awareness stuff. You know, it's the missile that shoots you down is the missile you never saw. Right. And so we always have a wingman. You know, we're always got some way to look and see what's happening above us or behind us. And when it comes to, you know, maybe some things that people haven't thought of before, I think it's motivating people today. You know, everyone's not about money. Everyone's not about, you know, I guess just some of the more obvious ones. The military is, you know, famous for motivating people with no opportunity for financial reward whatsoever.
Right.
What are some of the ways that you guys look at so that we don't get a missile, essentially, as leaders to say, how can I motivate the troops when money is not even an option? Because so many companies today, money's not an option.
That's right.
But they have to still find ways to motivate them.
That's right.
What might you give us some?
That's a great way to tee it up, because now you're right, a lot of especially small companies find themselves in the same situation we are, where we find ways to reward performance or to motivate other than fiscally. But if you look at, in fact, all the current literature on just motivation theory, what is it that motivates people? It's having some autonomy in their decision. It is the opportunity to master a skill. You know, we want to be good at something. And then there's having a sense of purpose, right? Being a part of something bigger than yourself, which obviously the military gives people a great opportunity to do that from a large perspective. But even that, sometimes we forget at the command level. We need to remember to pull people together, have this open and frank conversation, and make them a part, and to motivate them to whatever that submission is.
So I think it almost kind of comes back into the whole trust thing. If I can understand with a level of intimacy of some of, you know, the different things that motivate people.
Yes.
And almost specifically design it to say, you know, I know that Mike, he really likes it when someone does X. And, you know, how can we, with such large organizations, get to know that one size doesn't fit all? Is there any assessment tools that you guys use to know that this person responds more from public praise and this person responds more by, you know, a quiet pat on the back? How do you guys get at that?
Yeah, you know, we use in our leader development for commanding officers and even at our department head level, we use some of the tools that are out there, Myers-Briggs and others, personality assessments, to help people understand, again, like you said, both yourself and really what we're trying to get people is that insight and understanding others. Don't always imply your optimism, your sense of optimism to everyone else, because they may not be there.
Right. Well, Captain Hollingsworth, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your service to the country. Thank you to your family for allowing you also to serve this great country. And thank you for having such a tremendous impact on all of the Navy as you lead this personal and leadership development. So God bless you and thank you.
My pleasure.
Have a great day. I'll be back with a final thought on the subject, but first, more insights from the Cox Business Executive Discussion Series. Stay with us. You're watching CBTV.
Make models and simulations more accessible. How do you expect us to help you? And I say this in terms of new tools and new rules in a new year. It would just require really that you give us what you think is a problem that you may not be able to solve on your own, or you may not be able to, you may need some sort of input for somebody different. So at that moment, I hope that you start thinking of what role do as academicians we have in order to provide to you.